Knowledge is power. Class is in session. Power 106.
Before God and all mankind, I pledge the love and loyalty of my heart, the wisdom and courage of my mind, the strength and vigor of my body, in the service of my fellow citizens. I promise to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace, to work diligently and creatively, to think generously and honestly, so that Jamaica may, under God, increase in beauty, fellowship, and prosperity, and play her part in advancing the welfare of the whole human race. Anything yet? Housekeeping duties. They're dealing with housekeeping matters. Is it that they're It's the International Decade of Healthy Aging, the International Decade of Ecosystem Restoration, the International Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, the Decade of Action for Road Safety, and the UN International Decade of Indigenous Languages. It's the 16th day of the third month of 2023, the International Year of Millets. Millets are cereals grown in warm countries and regions with poor soils, bearing a large crop of small seeds which are chiefly used to make flour. 2023 is also the International Year of Dialogue as a guarantee of peace. Here in Jamaica and in the United States, the month of March is being observed as Intellectual Disabilities Awareness Month. Also in the US, March is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, Endometriosis Awareness Month, and Salt Awareness Month. And in the UK, March is also Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. In fact, Women's History Month is being observed in the month of March as well. It's Black Press Freedom of Information Day and Liberty Day in the United States of America. Loco Davi or Manger du Bois Rituel en Haïti, and Saint Erho's Day in Finland. Hoy es jueves, el 16 de marzo 2023. Y les saludamos en cualquier parte del mundo que nos están escuchando en este momento. Estamos muy agradecidos por el don de la vida y el privilegio de servirles en otra edición de su programa, Both Sides of the Story, ambos lados de la historia. Nunca vamos a tomar su audiencia por sentado porque sabemos que ustedes tienen otras opciones. Y esta es la razón por la cual jamás olvidamos darle las gracias por elegir Both Sides of the Story, ambos lados de la historia, de lunes a viernes, desde las 2 hasta las 5 de la tarde, aquí en Power 106 FM. La misión continúa para educar, capacitar, iluminar y estimular el espíritu empresarial. Bienvenidos. C'est jeudi, le 16 mars 2023, et nous vous saluons tous qui nous écoutez, où que vous soyez dans le monde. Nous sommes reconnaissants du don de la vie ainsi que du privilège d'être à votre service par une nouvelle édition de votre programme Both Sides of the Story, le pour et le contre. Nous ne considérons pas votre fidélité comme l'un de soi parce que nous savons que vous avez l'embarras du choix. C'est pourquoi nous n'oublions jamais de vous remercier de choisir d'écouter Both Sides of the Story, le pour et le contre, du lundi au vendredi de 13h à 5h de l'après-midi sur notre antenne Power 106 FM. Nous continuons notre mission d'éduquer, d'habiliter, d'éclairer et d'encourager l'esprit d'entreprise. Bienvenue.
This broadcast of Prime Minister Andrew Holness's budget presentation is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister and the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation.
All we're saying is it's Thursday, the 16th of March, and it's time for us to go live, go to Jamaica, to
here today.
Parliament.
I am filled with an overwhelming sense of gratitude, appreciation, and positivity. Thanks to the Almighty for carrying our country through the difficult times over the last 3 years. Despite trials and tribulations, we are here today as a testament to the unwavering power of God's love, grace, and the promise of hope and prosperity. Madam Speaker, I thank my family for their love and support, particularly Juliet and my mother who is watching from overseas, and my sons. They're no longer my boys, they're grown men now. I thank my colleagues, Madam Speaker. I thank you for your administration of the Parliament. I thank my parliamentary colleagues for their counsel. I thank the Parliamentary Caucus. I thank our party members and the people of West Central St. Andrew for their loyalty and support. Let me acknowledge my personal staff and advisors. Let me also acknowledge those hard-working public sector workers and the board members who serve voluntarily and who, with the public sector workers' policy and guidance, they make today's presentation of achievements possible. Madam Speaker, I'm happy to see our friends from the diplomatic corps sharing the occasion with other friends and officials in the gallery. These proceedings are being broadcast on various platforms, and I'm told there is a significant viewership both locally and in the diaspora. So let me welcome you all. To our humble parliament. Madam Speaker, it is my great pleasure to share the incredible story of Jamaica's remarkable rebound in the face of global economic shocks and pandemics. In the face of supply chain disruptions, in the face of a war in the Ukraine, in the face of high global inflation, against all odds, our nation has defied expectations and delivered an economic recovery that has captured the attention of the world. Consider these impressive achievements. 7 consecutive quarters of economic growth surpassing pre-pandemic levels in real output. More than 150,000 jobs created and restored. Driving the unemployment rate to historic low levels. Net international reserves at US $3.93 billion, US dollars, up by 26% from pre-COVID levels. International recognition of our nation's exceptional response to the pandemic and strong economic recovery, as evidenced by Fitch's revised rating outlook to positive. Without triggering a debt, a balance of payment, or a currency crisis. But, Madam Speaker, here's one that I want everyone to consider. In the midst of a global economic fallout and global retrenchment in employment, this government did not lay off not one public sector worker.
We'll resume our coverage of the Prime Minister's budget presentation in just a moment.
To Margins Pharmacy and you will feel better. The service is clearly different. Margins Pharmacy, call 876-703-6335. The time by Margins Pharmacy is
2:16 on Power 106.
I'm Nigel Clark, the Minister of Finance and the Public Service. We want a public service that is fair, that values people, and delivers high-quality services. Jamaica competes in a global environment, and for us to remain competitive, the public service needs to be in a position to deliver services effectively, efficiently, and in good time.
Brought to you by the Transformation Implementation Unit.
Become the hero on the scene by taking the COVID vaccine. Get vaccinated as soon as you get all the facts. Don't listen to the rumors. This vaccine might just make it possible for teachers to sit face to face with schoolers. This vaccine make it safer for everybody, from the young to the elderly. Don't you want to go back to living normally when things were more orderly? And if you want to live a long good life, then we all have to do what's right. So let's get vaccinated along with the heroes on the front line.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
This broadcast of Prime Minister Andrew Holness's budget presentation is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister and the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation.
2020 and 2023, the annual depreciation rate, that is during the pandemic, during all the difficulties, was only 3.2%. Madam Speaker, in the face of balance of payments crises and significant currency devaluations in several developing countries, Jamaica has achieved a remarkable feat. For most of our independent history, the exchange rate and currency devaluation would figure prominently in public discourse and certainly in the budget debate. I remember many budget debates where the entire budget debate was about the dollar, devaluation. However, my government, because they love to say this, the Andrew Holness-led administration. Yes, it's my government, it's my people. I can't hide from that. I take responsibility. So, we notice that if it's good, not nothing, you're the local. But yes, your administration, which is the Andrew Holness-led administration, your government, our government, has taken a different approach. You see, and it's true. Has taken a different approach by establishing a vision of an independent central bank with an inflation-fighting mandate, which has helped to minimize the inflation differential between Jamaica and its main trading partners. As a result, despite experiencing high global inflation and factors outside of our control, we have avoided the added inflation caused by currency devaluation, which would have made import prices even higher for Jamaica. Despite this strong macroeconomic performance, we acknowledge that far too many Jamaicans are not experiencing the benefits of our national economic progress in their own personal circumstances. You know, I keep saying it to the Minister of Finance. I said to him, you are happy with the performance, the outer, but the Minister of Finance of the households in Jamaica, the people who have to balance the everyday lives, right now they're not feeling so happy. And so I want it to be clearly understood that your government, your Andrew Holness-led administration, understands that. Too many Jamaicans continue to feel the weight of financial hardships on their shoulders, and we empathize with them deeply. We recognize that while economic growth is important, it must be accompanied by equity and inclusivity to ensure the benefits of progress are shared widely and fairly, rather than concentrated in the hands of the few. Understanding the historical inequities and the deep mistrust that people have of the system to share fairly, your government has never taken our focus off the poor and most vulnerable. Madam Speaker, that side say they care about the poor. We obviously not only say we demonstrate, but there's a difference. They want to share what they don't produce. We on this side, Madam Speaker, we produce. We show results. I want the Jamaican people to appreciate that if they were in power, there would be no conversation about sharing gains. The conversation would have been about hardship and taxes.
You're listening to Power 106 FM and our live coverage of the Prime Minister's presentation in the budget debate. We just lost the feed for a moment. Let's remind you that it's taking place at Gordon House. And we also would like you to know that the program Auto World will not be aired this evening due to Power 106 FM's live coverage of the Prime Minister's budget presentation. We also would like you to know that our newscast, our 5 o'clock newscast, will be delayed again to facilitate coverage of the Prime Minister's presentation. For the moment, though, we have lost the connection. No audio coming through. And we would imagine that the technical team would notify or check or otherwise be working on that situation. And as soon as the audio is restored, we'll go live once again. The advertisement in today's Gleaner, today's newspaper, speaks of the government of Jamaica from vision to reality, nurturing seeds for peace, opportunity, and prosperity. And the presentation today features the Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, and we await that feed once again. In the meantime, we continue right here on your program, Both Sides of the Story. Let's fluctuations in the audio at the moment. As soon as that is resolved, we'll go live once again. In the meantime, we thank those who have joined us, those who are online watching and listening. Norman Hines in St. Thomas. Dr. Sharon Wiles says, greetings, Sir Malcolm, from Dallas, Texas. Joan Edgehill says, good afternoon, Mr. Dervan. Thank you for sharing. Good afternoon to you too, Joan Edgehill in Central Florida. Quincy Brown says, good afternoon, Sir Dervan. Listening attentively to the broadcast. I'm tuned in from the Cayman Islands. Good to have you on board, Quincy Brown. All the very best to you. Again, if you're just tuning in, this is Both Sides of the Story, Power 106 FM, and a special edition featuring the Prime Minister's presentation in the budget debate. We've been experiencing audio issues, and for the moment, well, looks like the matter has been resolved. Let's listen.
Madam Speaker, I'm told that the last 3 or so minutes of my presentation was not heard by the extensive audience that is listening, and they want to hear. Madam Speaker, despite the strong macroeconomic performance, we acknowledge that far too many Jamaicans are not experiencing the benefits of our national economic progress.
The technical issues apparently continue, and while that is being resolved, let's remind you, this is Both Sides of the Story, Power 106 FM. I'm Dervan Malcolm. It's a special edition of the program as Power 106 FM presents the budget the 2023-2024 budget from from his perspective, and that happens today. The Prime Minister will make his contribution to the 2023-2024 budget debate in the House of Representatives. In fact, that has started on time as well, but interrupted by the connection, the audio issues that are being experienced. The Prime Minister is expected to highlight accomplishments and speak on matters relating to housing, water, the environment, national security, among other national imperatives. The Prime Minister's presentation comes against the background of Jamaica's full recovery from COVID-19, with unprecedented growth across various sectors and record low unemployment. There have been significant investments in physical infrastructure through the provision of housing, road, and water projects, and in bringing internet access to citizens in communities island-wide. The Minister of Finance and the Public Service, the Honorable Nigel Clarke, opened the budget debate on March 7, when he outlined how the government's trillion-dollar expenditure for the upcoming fiscal year would be funded. The opposition spokesman on finance, Julian Robinson, responded in his contribution to the debate on Thursday, March 9, while the leader of the opposition, Mark Golding, made his presentation on Tuesday of this week, March 14. Dr. Clarke will conclude the debate next Tuesday, the 21st of March. In the meantime, we're still waiting to reconnect with Gordon House for the live stream of the Prime Minister's presentation, scheduled to take place right now. But let's take the break and come back. Hopefully, the audio will be restored by that time.
You're listening to Power 106 FM. The time is now
2:30.
Trangbach tonic wine is made with 100% natural Jamaican blends of herbs and spices formulated to strengthen the back, settle the nerves, and enhance your sexual performance. Trangbach tonic wine is available in all major supermarkets and wholesale island-wide. For more information, you can call us 876-749-1286, 876-667-0489, or visit us at 53 Wellington Street, Spanish Town. Trangbach tonic wine. Straighten your back to make the attack.
You are an exporter, helping to elevate the face of our international trade. But in order to do that, and all the other tasks on your list, you need someone that understands you. We know that finding adequate collateral as a SME can sometimes be challenging, which is why we've partnered with our friends at JMB to bring you the EXIM Expert Guarantee to give you that extra collateral support where you may need it. Call Exim Bank to find out more about the Exim Export Guarantee. Exim Bank. By helping businesses, we save lives and livelihood.
Both sides of the story.
Do you have a title for your land? Are you thinking about buying or selling land? How much is your property worth? Tune in to Both Sides of the Story with Dervan Malcolm on Power 106 FM every last Tuesday at 3:30 p.m. for The NLA and You, a program that examines the National Land Agency's role in building an efficient and transparent land titling system for Jamaicans. That's The NLA and You on Both Sides of the Story with Dervan Malcolm every last Tuesday at 3:30 p.m. The National Land Agency. One agency, one goal, committed to serve you better.
Thanks for staying with us here on your program, Both Sides of the Story, Power 106 FM. I'm Dervan Malcolm. There's a delay in the resumption of the Prime Minister's contribution to the budget debate, and that delay is due to audio issues. Attempts being made now to resolve those issues. Until then, let's remind you that the annual budget indicates what will be done with the finances of the country over the course of a year. The purpose of the budget is to decide how much money the government plans to expend on security, roads, water, housing, and other services it provides. The budget debate provides the government with the opportunity to take stock of its performance over the previous fiscal year, to measure its progress in relation to the targets previously set, and to assess the effectiveness of its management of the country's finances. The budget debate is usually opened by the finance minister, who outlines how the various programs and policies of the government will be financed and how the money will be raised. The minister then presents the government's expenditure and revenue estimates for parliamentary approval at the start of each financial year, and the financial year runs from April to March of the following year. So April this year to March of the following year. April last year to March of this year. They are organized by public service into what is termed heads of estimates and reflect government's development policies and priorities. The budget is prepared under the direction of the financial secretary. The budget debate usually begins after months of intensive planning by financial experts. Such planning needs careful attention since it decides the welfare of the nation for the next 12 months and might even have important effects for the following years. The government is always faced with the problem of getting the maximum benefits out of its limited resources. During the budget debate, ministers report on the work done in government departments under their portfolios and outline plans for the coming financial year. The Minister of Finance, who presents the budget and opens the debate, also has the privilege of speaking last as he closes the budget debate. After the Minister of Finance has presented the budget and made his opening address, the House of Representatives creates the Standing Finance Committee to study the budget and make recommendations. When the debate closes, the House passes an Appropriation Act, which gives the government the authority to operate the budget. After the House of Representatives has passed the Appropriation Act, the act goes to the Senate for approval. Now, we hear a lot of talk about debt and debt management. The debt management strategy of the government of Jamaica is an annual publication of the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service that provides information on the government's debt management objectives, policies, plans, and strategies for the fiscal year and the medium term. Financial statements and revenue estimates, memoranda on the budget. And you can find this information at mof.gov.jm. That's mof.gov.jm/budgets/budget-memorandum. That's mof.gov.jm/budget/memorandum.html. Now, there are some terms that we hear being used in media, in newscasts presented on radio, television, online, etc. Let's look at some of these terms and their meanings used during the budget debate. Recurrent expenditure. Recurrent expenditure. The recurrent account contains all the expenses that accrue in the carrying out of services normally rendered by government. Some of these expenses include wages and salaries of government employees and the upkeep of offices, factories, warehouses, and farms. The recurrent account also contains an estimate of the revenue expected from taxes such as import duties, income taxes, property taxes, licenses, and consumption duties. So that's recurrent expenditure. Then you might hear another term, capital expenditure. The capital account includes expenses connected with the purchase and upkeep of goods, such as machinery in factories, school buildings, offices, and roads. These projects are expensive, but they in turn help in the production of other goods and services. The capital account, therefore, plays an important part in the country's economy, for as the stock of capital goods grows, production capacity increases. The capital account also includes income from government-owned profit-making enterprises and loans of various kinds. And then there's the Appropriation Act. That's the law that gives the government the authority to spend money for the activities outlined in the estimates of expenditure. Now, the estimates of expenditure is the legal financial document which provides details on the amount of money the government intends to spend during the fiscal year. The estimates of expenditure include allocations to the government ministries, departments, and agencies. Some people say MDAs for short. If you ever hear a story being read in the news and they talk about MDAs, that's a shortcut for ministries, departments, and agencies. Now, another term we hear a lot in Jamaica is fiscal policy. FISCAL policy, fiscal policy. What is it? Fiscal policy is the measure used by the government to manage the national budget and to influence macroeconomic outcomes. And then there's the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. The IMF is the international organization responsible for monitoring the system of exchange rates between countries while ensuring the stability of the international monetary system and to monitor. If you've ever heard the term Extended Fund Facility, EFF, that's an IMF loan agreement that establishes a 3 to 5 year period of support for a country's balance of payments. Another common term is government revenue. Government revenue is the amount of money the government expects to earn or raise in order to finance public expenditure. That's government revenue. Recurrent revenue is revenue earned from taxes as well as non-tax sources such as court fines, interest earned on investments, etc. And then there's capital revenue, which is the revenue raised through royalties, sale of land, divestment proceeds, and external loans. Another big one that we hear about all the time is the consolidated fund. What is the consolidated fund? The consolidated fund is the primary account to which all government revenue is deposited and from which expenditure through warrants is drawn. So the consolidated fund is the primary account. Just as those of us who have bank accounts, you might have a savings account and a checking account. but the primary account for you might be your savings account. So the consolidated fund is the primary account to which all government revenue is deposited. Anything that's supposed to go to government is deposited in that primary account, known as the consolidated fund. And from that same fund, the consolidated fund, expenditure needs are met. So just as how you deposit, you withdraw. You deposit money in the consolidated fund, you also withdraw money from the consolidated fund through warrants, WARRANTS. Now, we usually relate that word or connect that word to the court system issuing a warrant for somebody's arrest. Well, the warrant or warrants being referred to as far as the consolidated fund is concerned is the written authority over the signature of the Minister of Finance and the Financial Secretary, authorizing the Accountant General to transfer money from the consolidated fund to the various government accounts listed in the warrants. We're sharing with you some of the terms, common terms used in relation to the national budget here in Jamaica. We hope you're finding the definitions quite useful, giving you a better understanding of what is and why it is so. We've been able to do this because there's been a break in the transmission of the Prime Minister's contribution to the budget debate. That is still being worked on, but we need to take a break.
You're listening to Power 106 FM. The time is now
2:45.
We started out this afternoon with the words of the National Pledge by reciting the National Pledge and paired it with this very nostalgic and empowering patriotic song, I Pledge My Heart Forever. For today's edition of Both Sides of the Story. Power 106 FM is slated to broadcast live the Prime Minister's presentation in the budget debate, which happens today. The Prime Minister did, in fact, start his presentation. And at a couple of points during the presentation, audio issues emerged. And those issues are still being resolved. Until that happens, we'll continue to share with you here on both sides of the story. Power 106 FM, we've been using the opportunity of the technical issues to share with you definitions of some common terms, words, phrases that you hear a lot in the news, whether you're watching news, listening to news, or reading it in the paper. And so we were at warrants, and I think we shared the definition. But just for emphasis, a warrant in relation to finance or economics. A warrant is the written authority over the signature of the Minister of Finance and the Financial Secretary, authorizing the Accountant General, just as how your workplace has an accounts department. Picture that. So too does the government, the Accountant General. So a warrant is the written authority over the signature of the Minister of Finance and the Financial Secretary, authorizing the Accountant General to transfer money from the consolidated fund to the various government accounts listed in the warrants. We've also heard a lot about multilateral loans and grants. Multilateral loans and grants represent funding from international financial institutions such as the World Bank, the IMF, and the Inter-American Development Bank, the IDB. Then there are bilateral grants. Bilateral grants represent funding from other governments. Bilateral grants represent funding from other governments. A grant is something that you don't have to pay back. If you get a grant, the hope or the plan or the vision or the decision was built on the premise that whatever is going to be done with that money is going to be well done, or is going to achieve a particular end, a particular purpose. So there are bilateral grants which represent funding from other governments. Now there's a term that some of us first heard maybe about, about 10, 12 years ago, what is called a national debt exchange. A national debt exchange, that's an exchange of debt instrument between the government and its creditors. The main debt investment instruments are government bonds, BONDS. In the debt exchange process, the borrower will offer the bondholders the opportunity to exchange existing old bonds for new one. So let's say this bond I'm holding now becomes due, for argument's sake, 2 or 5 years later. When it gets to that point, that 5-year term, between the government and its creditors, there's an engagement between both sides. One coming to say, we would like to extend this bond, or we would like to put it in simple terms, encash this bond, as opposed to having it continue in its current form. So that's the national debt exchange. Now, the public debt is the total amount of money owed by the government. Public debt is the total amount of money owed by the government. We also hear from time to time reference to debt service payments. Debt service payments involve the payment of principal and interest charges on loans. So it's a payment of both the principal, as in the amount of money involved, and interest charges on loans. You would also have heard about treasury bills, which are short-term financing instruments used to meet government cash flow needs. Treasury bills are short-term financing instruments used to meet government cash flow needs. Then there's monetary policy. Monetary policy is the economic measure employed by the Bank of Jamaica, BOJ, to monitor interest rates and the amount of money in circulation. So monetary policy is the economic measure employed by the Bank of Jamaica, BOJ, to monitor interest rates and the amount of money in circulation. And then there is the contingency fund. A contingency fund is a fund established by the Constitution of Jamaica for use in emergencies such as natural disasters. The contingency fund is a fund established by the Constitution of Jamaica for use in emergencies such as natural disasters. Now, in terms of projects, there are two categories, capital A and capital B. This is what we used to say as children, right? Capital A, common A. Capital B, common B. So it's the ABCs. Anyway, capital A projects are funded solely from revenue obtained from taxes. Capital A projects are funded solely from revenue obtained from taxes, which is why you hear the expression from time to time, or you see the sign, your tax dollars at work. Capital A projects are funded solely from revenue obtained from taxes. On the other hand, capital B projects are funded by revenue from taxes and multilateral and bilateral loans and grants. We'll repeat, capital B projects are funded by revenue from taxes and multilateral and bilateral loans and grants. Now, what's a budget memorandum? A budget memorandum provides a summary review of the macroeconomy, the performance of central government's budget in the immediate past financial year, as well as the aims, objectives of the new central government budget. It also reviews the activities of the public sector entities and the selected projects' performance. Budget presentations, one of which is scheduled and started already for this afternoon, are the speeches and presentations to Parliament each year. That's pretty straightforward. Budget presentations are speeches and presentations to Parliament each fiscal year. And once again, we apologize for the break in the live streaming of the Prime Minister's presentation, which has impacted all media entities carrying the Prime Minister's presentation. And it would appear the technical crew or crews or teams are busy trying to resolve this matter. And until they do, we have to keep it going. In radio, we cannot have dead air. We have to keep it going. And so we're keeping it going here on your program, Both Sides of the Story, Power 106 FM. Let's remind you, it's a special edition. Power 106 FM is affording listeners the opportunity of hearing the presentation of the Prime Minister in his contribution to the national budget debate. The broadcasting of the Prime Minister's budget debate will result in changes to our programming here on Power 106 FM. For example, Auto World with Shelley Ann McLagan will not be aired this afternoon. The Auto World with Shelley Ann McLagan will not be aired this afternoon. Also, the news, the major news at 5 is going to be delayed. There will be a delayed broadcast of the news in order to facilitate the Prime Minister's contribution to the budget debate. So that's what we are on the lookout for now in terms of how soon the audio issues will be resolved at source and elsewhere. So that's the situation right now. So far, we've already heard from the finance minister opening the debate. The opposition spokesperson uh, also made his contribution. That's Julian Robinson. Then the leader of the opposition, Mark Golding's presentation. And now, today, the 16th of March, we started streaming the Prime Minister's presentation, but it has been interrupted by technical issues. In the meantime, we're almost at the break. We could use the opportunity to clear a few messages. Good afternoon to Reverend Astley MacDonald in Canada. Thank you for listening. Faye Weller is also online. Good afternoon to you, Faye Weller. She says, blessed rainy afternoon. That it is a rainy afternoon. I'm here watching and listening. She says, blessings always to you too. Claudette Cameron says, good afternoon, Mr. Dervan. Well, good afternoon, Dervan Malcolm. Happy Thursday to you too, Claudette Cameron. And Inez Iona Campbell says, good afternoon, Mr. Dervan and viewers. I thank you for enlightening my knowledge of the meaning of those words in reference to the additional information we've been sharing on account of the break in transmission as far as the Prime Minister's contribution to the budget debate is concerned. There's more after the break.
Contractors, developers, and small builders. Contact Coast to Coast Group of Companies for high-quality concrete products. The time by Coast to Coast Group of Companies is
3 o'clock. It's here, it's there, it's everywhere. It's onespotmedia.com. Watch your favorite local program or listen to your favorite radio station from anywhere in the world on your tablet, smartphone, or personal computer. Download the app now and keep up to date with your favorite local programs on TVJ. Check us out at onespotmedia.com. Follow us on Instagram, facebook.com/onespotmedia, and subscribe now. OneSmartMedia.com. It's my land, as God as it shall live. My God, my strength, my love, and my loyalty to give. Oh, green and only evenings can make us strong and free.
Thanks a lot for staying with us here on your program, Both Sides of the Story, Power 106 FM, still streaming live on the Gleaners website, go-jamaica.com, live on your smart devices all over the world, as we continue to monitor the resumption of the Prime Minister's budget presentation, sharing with you information in between the breaks until those technical issues have been resolved. And we have been sharing information so far on various aspects of the economic affairs of the country, and all of this governed by a constitution, and wanted to share as well information from the constitution in relation to these matters. And we're going to do that in a moment, or in a little while from now. But in the meantime, let's keep it going here on both sides of the story on Power 106 FM, still streaming live on the Gleaners website, go-jamaica.com. Live on your smart devices all over the world. And wanting as well to, no doubt, we haven't checked the text line, same as the WhatsApp number, but no doubt comments are coming through. We're going to see if we can take a couple of those comments, a few of those comments, until the technical matters are sorted out. So we want to do that as well. And we see the messages naturally coming through on our text line, same as the WhatsApp number. And let's see what some of the messages are saying. This one from Cuban in Georgia saying, "Good afternoon, Sir Malcolm. I'm making sure I'm present and early for class this afternoon, sir. And I will be paying close attention to the front of the class, sir. The Prime Minister is making a joke out of the real reality on the ground that are affecting the lives of citizens," says Cuban in Georgia. In my opinion, Sir Malcolm, I think the Prime Minister is carrying what? No, we're not going to read that part of your message, Cuban in Georgia. But he goes on, Sir Malcolm, did the Prime Minister... all right, Cuban in Georgia, you obviously don't want us to read your messages by virtue of how you're composing them. We still have to operate with a level of decorum, and that's exactly what we'll continue to do. Continuing with more on your program, both sides of the story, Power 106 FM, still streaming live on the Gleaners website, go-jamaica.com. So there is a Jamaica Constitution in brief. Wanted to share some information with you from the Constitution. While we wait on the resolution of technical issues, let's look at Chapter 8 of the Constitution in relation to finance. Under Chapter 8 of the Constitution, except where a law provides otherwise, all revenues of Jamaica are paid into a consolidated fund and then become very difficult to get out. The Constitution specifies how money may be moved out of the consolidated fund. The Minister of Finance must prepare a budget showing estimates of revenue and expenditure for each financial year. Financial year runs from April 1st, one year, to the 31st of March the following year. The estimates are tabled in the House of Representatives and must be debated and approved by the House. Proposed expenditure is in the form of an appropriation bill, which, when passed, becomes the Appropriation Act. The Minister of Finance may then issue warrants. Remember, we spoke about warrants earlier on, permitting payments out of the consolidated fund. Before the Appropriation Act is passed, the House of Representatives may allow expenditure of a carry-on allowance, such as a vote on account. The Minister of Finance can authorize payment for unexpected expenditure through a contingencies fund. He may also get approval from the House of Representatives for additional expenditure during the financial year by introducing supplementary estimates. The Constitution provides for the appointment of an Auditor General who is responsible for auditing the accounts of all government departments except his own. Was there a proposed, I think there was a proposed change. Not sure what became of that, but that was in the news some years ago as to who will then audit the Auditor General or something along those lines. We'll see if we can pull that from the archives. But anyway, the audit of the Auditor General's department is carried out by the Minister of Finance. The Auditor General is subject to the direction and control of no other person or authority. His salary is secured, or his or her salary is secured by the Constitution, and he or she can be removed from office only on the recommendation of a specially constituted judicial inquiry. And of course, in the news for some months now, maybe you could argue for years, all kinds of issues to do with the public service. That's Chapter 9 of the Constitution. As in the case of the Judicial Service Commission, there are a Public Service Commission and a Police Service Commission provided under Chapter 9 of the Constitution with the responsibility for the appointment, dismissal, and disciplinary control of civil servants and police officers. So if you're a police, if you're a member of the constabulary, you are subjected to the vagary, well, let's say you're subjected to the policies of the Police Service Commission, the rules, the regulations, the protocols, etc. of the Police Service Commission. If you are in the other areas of public service, then the Public Service Commission will deal with the business of hiring or dismissing in keeping with the Constitution, public service personnel. And there's, of course, also the Judicial Service Commission that deals with public servants in the justice system. The Governor General makes appointments to the services commissions on the recommendation of the Prime Minister after consultation with the Leader of the Opposition. Notwithstanding the control exercised by the services commissions in general, permanent secretaries and the financial secretary are appointed by the Governor General, acting on the recommendations of the Public Service Commission after consultation with the Prime Minister. A permanent secretary may be transferred by the Governor General on the advice of the Prime Minister, and power to appoint ambassadors, high commissioners, or other principal representatives abroad is vested in the Governor General, acting on the advice of the Prime Minister, provided that where the appointment involves a civil servant, the Prime Minister must consult the Public Service Commission. And there's a lot more information we could share. If you're just tuning in and wondering what's happening, this is both sides of the story on Power 106 FM. I'm Dervan Malcolm. We were scheduled to bring to you live coverage of the Prime Minister's budget presentation. However, technical issues have resulted in a pause in the Prime Minister's presentation, and those technical issues are still being looked at. In the meantime, let's remind you that there will be further adjustments to our programming here on Power 106 FM to accommodate the Prime Minister's presentation. And so the major news at 5, the portion usually carried by Power 106 FM, will be delayed. The major news at 5 will be delayed. There will be a delayed broadcast of major news at 5. And the Auto World with Shelley and McLagan will not be aired today. The Auto World with Shelley and McLagan will not be aired today. For the time being, though, we continue to wait and indeed await the resolution of those technical issues which have delayed the resumption of the Prime Minister's budget presentation. There's more, and we'll hear what more there is after the break.
You're listening to Power 106 FM. The time is now
3:15.
I hold the assignment to the pan to the GMs, because from morning you left out, I just one of them days where the minister was storing more than one location. So a lot of moving around. But that mean enough mileage for claim this month, man. Nice little change that, not true? So we can still claim for mileage under the new compensation system? Yeah, man. See, I almost dashed with the money there. Reimbursement for mileage still applies.
Public officers who are required to travel on work assignments are still eligible to claim for work-related approved travel under the new compensation system. The new GOJ compensation system. Better pay, better pension. Visit the Ministry of Finance and the Public Services website for more information.
Trangbat tonic wine is made with 100% natural Jamaican blends of herbs and spices formulated to strengthen the back, settle the nerves, and enhance your sexual performance. Trangbat tonic wine is available in all major supermarkets and wholesale island-wide. For more information, you can call us 876-749-1286, 876-667-0489, or visit us at 53 Wellington Street, Spanish Town. Trangbat tonic wine. Straighten your back to make the attack.
Thanks a lot for staying with us here on your program, Both Sides of the Story, Power 106 FM. I'm Dervan Malcolm. We're still standing by for the resumption of the Prime Minister's budget presentation, scheduled to start at 2. They started just after 2, pretty much on time. But then technical issues and the Prime Minister's presentation has been put on pause for the moment. We await further information. In the meantime, good afternoon to Sean Chambers. Thank you for tuning in on YouTube. Errol in Maryland says, good afternoon, Sir D. Just here waiting for the sound to come back. Asha Ash says, good afternoon, Mr. Dervan. Just tuning in from London. Welcome, Asha Ash. Straight Up says, I sincerely hope, in reference to the Prime Minister, that he gives a fulsome account of why his integrity filings. Can we share with you some information on the word fulsome. Although the earliest use of fulsome, Fulsome, first recorded in the 13th century, was generous or abundant. That's the first recorded. The earliest use of fulsome, first recorded in the 13th century, that use referred to generous or abundant. This meaning is now regarded by some people as wrong. The correct meaning today is held to be excessively complimentary or flattering. However, the word is still often used in its original sense of abundant, especially in sentences such as, "She was fulsome in her praise for the people who organized it." And this use can give rise to ambiguity. For one speaker, fulsome praise may be a genuine compliment, whereas for others, it will be interpreted as an insult. So you might want to study that word a little more to ensure you're using it appropriately. The word fulsome, Fulsome. I was first introduced to the word in my monitoring of newscasts. I would hear that word being used not just in newscasts, but in discussions on Nationwide 90 FM. That's where I first started hearing the use, the fulsome use of that word. I'm not necessarily a fan of the word, but so it is. Right. So, Straight Up says, I sincerely hope, in reference to the Prime Minister, that he gives a fulsome account on why his integrity filings are always in question and how much. No, we're not going to ask the other part of your question there. And the rest of it is just cursing. So let's move on. Someone who calls himself Militant Bro says, first time joining you on social media, but I'm a constant listener. Continue your great work. Thank you very much, Militant Bro. Marvelyn Dobson says, good afternoon. Could you talk on pension, please? I'm not a pension expert. When you speak of talking on pension, what do you mean? What do you have in mind? Uh, Give us some more information and let's see if we can figure out exactly what you're saying. But let's try this. Let's see here. Government pensioners. Let's talk about government pensioners. Government pensioners are entitled to receive a minimum pension each year based on years of service. Government pensioners are entitled to receive a minimum pension each year based on years of service. This information is coming from the Accountant General's Department. The government of Jamaica stipulates the minimum pension, which is subject to change. The current minimum pension, with effect from July 1, 2019, is outlined as follows. Pensioners age 55 and older who have completed between 10 to 19 years of service should not be paid a pension less than $15,000 per month. And if they have completed 20 years or more of service, they should not be paid less than $19,000 per month. Widowers should not be paid less than $7,500 per month. Dependents, such as children or other stated beneficiaries, should not be paid less than $3,625 per month. Pensioners under the age of 55 who were not retired on the grounds of ill health or did not complete 10 years of service are paid the amount set out in their pension award letter. Not sure how useful that was for the listener who asked us to say something on pensions. Well, we got that bit of information from the Accountant General's Department. And good afternoon to Lincoln Lewis. Thank you for tuning in as well. All the best. Marcia Rodney, good afternoon to you too. Velta Wilson, good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in. Good to have you joining us on both sides of the story here on Power 106 FM. And Errol Townsend says, good afternoon to you, sir. Good afternoon, Errol in New Jersey. Welcome. And he has made a declaration which we will not repeat at this time, but because we have no such evidence, Errol in New Jersey. But thank you for your message nonetheless. As we continue to wait for the resumption of the Prime Minister's budget presentation, which one would imagine will make the news, whatever happens, in light of the technical issues. But let's keep it going here on your program, both sides of the story, Power 106 FM. Mr. Malcolm, what is liquidity? When the minister talks about liquidity, what is that? All right, let's see if we can give you an appropriate definition of liquidity. Liquidity refers to the availability of liquid assets to a market or company. So, for example, using it in a sentence, the banks closed, causing serious liquidity problems for smaller companies. So it's a function of the how ready to be used, in a manner of speaking, are these assets, liquid assets. Cash is usually referring to cash, liquid assets. So liquid assets, when you hear about liquidity, it's usually talking about cash. A firm, for example, may be unable to pay unless it has spare liquidity. So having funds, having money, having cash that can be readily called upon. Sometimes what some people do, because they need liquidity, they might auction a property. For those who own more than one type of accommodation, they can decide, because of something they see on the horizon, something that is coming, something that is going to have implications for the business or the household, they then sell an asset or two in order to get liquidity, in order to get cash. They need cash now. They need funds now. They need money now. They need liquidity right away. Hope that answers your question, Richard. Thank you very much for your message. This one says, oh no, that's not for us. That's for Simon. So let's just send this to the Power 106 WhatsApp number for what it's worth, just so it's in the system. So we have done that. Thank you so much for staying with us here on your program, both sides of the story, Power 106 FM. Still streaming live on the Gleaners website, go-jamaica.com. Live on your on your smart devices all over the world. and live on your smart devices, as we said. We're still waiting. No official word yet. Have we made any contact with the source of the feed to get an idea of whether this situation will go on, and if so, for how much longer, and what are the implications of that? But anyway, let's continue to share information. That's what we do. Let's look at 25 key economic concepts. Since we're talking budget, 25 key economic concepts. Let's see, where shall we start? So you may or may not have heard about the beer market, BEAR market. The principle of a beer market is simple enough. Essentially, it represents a negative or pessimistic outlook on the performance of a particular stock. You know, stocks that you buy, and as in shares. So when you hear the term beer market, BEAR market, it's regarded as a negative or pessimistic outlook on on the stock market's performance, essentially. So often with such markets falling into a downfall spiral where prices continue to drop. So that's a bear market. That's a negative or pessimistic outlook on a stock market's performance, often with such markets falling into a downward spiral where prices continue to drop. More in a moment.
Help us protect Jamaica's borders. Tell us about any illegal guns coming through customs controlled areas. Call Crime Stop at 311. The time by the Jamaica Customs Agency is 3:30. Dr. Jackie Campbell is on call this and every Wednesday evening at 8 with Powering Your Health. Powering Your Health is Power 106 FM's flagship program dedicated to health and wellness. Your one-stop place to power a healthy lifestyle. How can we help you to power your health? You can reach the show anytime by calling 876-922-4112 or by sending a text or WhatsApp message to 876-279-8598. Brought to you by Benson Pharmacy and Wellington Dental. That's Powering Your Health. Powerful health and wellness discussion and interaction. This and every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Only on Power 106 FM.
Thank you for staying with us here on both sides of the story, Power 106 FM. I'm Dervan Malcolm. This is the latest we're getting. We're getting some information here from the Jamaica Observer. Holness's budget presentation interrupted by mic malfunction. Prime Minister Andrew Holness's presentation in the 2023-24 budget debate was interrupted due to a system failure today. Now, from where we are, we would really love to be able to tell our listeners what's happening in terms of the technical issues and the resumption of or coverage of the Prime Minister's presentation. So let's see how that goes. Well, we haven't gotten any notification specific to that situation. Not sure if it's, have we checked other entities? Other media entities are down as well as far as the coverage is concerned, meaning the streaming is not happening. No. Oh dear. Only one link. Okay. Serving everybody. So if that link is down, then everybody is down. So that's the situation, listeners. We were originally scheduled to bring to you live coverage of the Prime Minister's budget presentation, but there was an interruption. There was an interruption of the audio feed, and we haven't heard anything since then. So we're told it's a mic malfunction. One would imagine there are other mics in Parliament, but unless the source of the to which that mic or those mics are connected, unless that source got hit or some other shortcoming. All right, let's see this story. So the story from the Observer is Prime Minister Andrew Holness's presentation in the 2023-24 budget debate was interrupted due to a system failure on Thursday. About 15 minutes into the Prime Minister's address, as he spoke about the economic realities being faced by Jamaicans, his microphone suddenly failed. Holness has had to stop his speech for nearly an hour as officials scramble to address the matter. Members of Parliament on the government side in Parliament could be heard suggesting that Holness's speech, well, let's just say they're imputing motives in terms of the speech and what happened. So that's the story. That's how the Jamaica Observer is reporting the technical issues faced by the Prime Minister in his bid to make his contribution to the national budget debate. So we'll see and we'll hear at some point, other than the information that we have so far. Let's see what happens from here on in. So let's see. Just checking for any further updates on that situation. Not seeing. Well, as we said, the Jamaica Observer has published a report. Jamaica Observer has published a report, and we did share the information with you. In the meantime, though, we continue. Since we're dealing with the budget, we were using the opportunity as well to share based on a question from one of our listeners in relation to some of the terms, the financial terms used with respect to what is a bear market. LL Richie Rich from Florida says, bear market, downward trend for stocks and other securities or commodities or investment instruments. Indeed, as a result of a bear market, selling of stocks tends to increase. Additionally, investors expect and may well receive increased losses from their investments. In the bull market, it's a different affair. A bull market represents a much more positive outlook on a stock market's performance compared to a bear market. In a bull market, stock prices either have or are expected to increase. And business cycle, if you've heard the expression business cycle, the business cycle refers to the overall expansion and subsequent contraction of an economy over a period of time. As a result, the business cycle is part of the wider field of macroeconomic theory. You can find we'll leave that there for now. Then there's the term comparative advantage. That's attributed to economist David Ricardo. Comparative advantage is a theoretical concept that describes the ability of one party to produce goods and or services with a lower opportunity cost compared to another party or parties. That's comparative advantage. You've heard of inflation. Well, there's also deflation, the opposite of inflation. It occurs when demand reduces, and this in turn produces results such as reduced prices. That's deflation. When demand reduces, and this in turn produces results such as reduced prices. Because the typical demand and supply, if the demand is high, then the prices are likely to be high. In the meantime, we'll take a few calls then. 876-922-4112-5. Perhaps you could tell us, what would you like to hear from the Prime Minister in his budget presentation? What would you like to hear from the Prime Minister in his budget presentation? Assuming you haven't heard it already in the first 15 minutes or so of the presentation we were able to hear. The numbers to call, 876-922-4112-5. 876-922-4112-5. The text line, same as the WhatsApp number, which means you can not only send us your text messages, your WhatsApp messages, your voice notes, but you can call us on WhatsApp as well. That number is 876-365-3346. 876-365-3346. Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for calling.
Hi, good afternoon, Dervan.
Good afternoon. Fine, thanks. And you?
Not too bad. Sorry. One thing I'd like to hear the Prime Minister address, obviously, my passion about the crime and violence here in Jamaica. I know they're doing some stuff, but what is planning to fund the root causes. Education, as you know, is one of them. Get the youths off the street, get them, especially...
Is it education or lack thereof?
Lack of education, sorry.
Okay.
Especially the schools that are on shift system, the ones that are not doing so great. How are we going to get these, especially the boys, away from thinking that they can survive and barely just not being educated, just not have a proper education. Reading and writing and maths and science, even a trade. I mean, you need to can read and write and the basic maths to even to have a trade. The days when you can survive without being literate, those days are long gone. So, and then the prison system needs to reform. We need new prison system. We need new prison. We need, the police need to be. I know the NIDS system. What happened to that, by the way? The NIDS. I think they were working on a redo of that. What happened? What's going on with that?
It is happening. Maybe not at the pace as we expected, but it got to the point where I think the Prime Minister got his NIDS card. I think so. I think there was a presentation.
Yeah, I think I've seen that. Yeah, but we need that to be fast-tracked where everybody, when the police pull me over, after ID, I can present my ID, And if I don't have an ID, then I can, there's means to say, okay, bring it to the station or whatever, I don't know. But we need to have a system in place where we can't go in the 21st century where people walking around without can't be proper identify themselves. So prison system, the schools, you can't have a prison where you go in and come out back as a more hardened criminal. Especially for young people, there has to be a way to reform them. They have a skill they can. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, we have to leave it here. The live stream is up once again.
Wow. Okay.
And so let's hear the Prime Minister's presentation. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I thank everyone for their patience, and we do apologize for the break in transmission due to a technical difficulty. And I did want to say, Madam Speaker, nobody's gonna break my stride. Nobody's gonna slow me down. Oh no, we got to keep on moving. Madam Speaker, allow me to thank PBCJ, the speakers, the staff of the Parliament, JIS, and CPTC, and Phase 3, who all chipped in to help us to get back on track. Madam Speaker, I was just about to drop some licks on the opposition. Having, Madam Speaker, gone through the spectacular performance of the Jamaican economy and pointing out that we have had 7 consecutive quarters of economic growth through the pandemic, and we are now, in real terms, after the pandemic, we have real output greater than pre-pandemic. Madam Speaker, we have restored 150,000 jobs, driving the unemployment rate to historic lows. Our net international reserve is now at $3.93 billion, up by 26% to pre-COVID levels. Fitch has revised our rating outlook to positive from stable. Madam Speaker, enduring the worst global health crisis and economic crisis in a century without triggering a debt crisis, a balance of payment crisis, or a currency crisis. And Madam Speaker, a point that has often been ignored is that during the global crisis caused by the pandemic, which also triggered global retrenchment in employment, the Jamaican government, your government, our government, did not lay off not even one public sector worker. These achievements speak not only to the resilience and determination of our people, but also to the sound policies and bold actions taken by your government. I also pointed out, Madam Speaker, that the monetary policy, the monetary management of our economy in terms of
handling depreciation of our currency is such, Madam Speaker, that it has prevented higher inflation than would have normally occurred had we not been so excellent in the management of our foreign currency and exchange rate. Madam Speaker, in the face of balance of payment crises and significant currency devaluation in several developing countries, Jamaica has achieved a remarkable feat. For most of our independent history, the exchange rate and currency devaluation would figure prominently in public discourse and certainly in the budget debate. And that's a feature of the debates that we have had. There's really no debate about our fiscal management, and there's really no debate about our monetary policy management. And that is because, Madam Speaker, we have taken a different approach than previous governments. We have established an independent, a truly independent central bank with an inflation fighting mandate, which has helped to minimize the inflation differential between Jamaica and its main trading partners. As a result, despite experiencing high global inflation and factors outside our control, we have avoided the added inflation caused by currency devaluation, which would have made imports even more expensive.
For any project, ABC Electrical Sales has all your electrical supplies at the best prices. 8 Hagley Park Road, Kingston, 7543714. The time by ABC Electrical Sales is
10 minutes to 4 o'clock.
With over 40 years of record service, Lock, Safe and Vault Limited is your trusted security provider. Get affordable prices on a wide variety of seals, garage doors, access control supplies, magnetic lock, fingerprint, weatherproof keypad, card access system, time attendance, power supplies, and exit buttons. Professional services provided. Visit 40 Shortwood Road, Kingston 8. Problem solved with Lock, Safe and Vault.
The Jamaica Agricultural Commodities Regulatory Authority, JACRA, is responsible for licensing, certification, cess administration, and the provision of training and advisory services to farmers and other key stakeholders, as it regulates coffee, cocoa, coconut, and the spices including pimento, nutmeg, ginger, and turmeric. We own the Jamaica Blue Mountain and Jamaica High Mountain coffee trademarks. Please call us at 876-758-1259 or email legal@jacra.org. This broadcast of Prime Minister Andrew Holness's budget presentation is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister and the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation.
The government concentrated efforts on creating the condition for the fastest recovery possible because a long period of economic fallout hits the poor the hardest. Nevertheless, with tax revenues precipitously falling and massive spending for the COVID-19 response, your government undertook the largest social welfare transfer in Jamaica's history. The CARE program to cushion the blow to the most vulnerable. Madam Speaker, the argument is being positive that somehow enough for the poor. And I'm happy, Madam Speaker, that the conversation has moved from quarreling over taxation. Because, Madam Speaker, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, a decade ago, when previous budgets were being read, the presentation by the Minister of Finance and by the Prime Minister was that the cupboard was empty. the cupboard empty, there's nothing in the cupboard to argue over. So it is clear that progress has been made. There is something to argue over, to be shared. And before the mic had chipped out, Madam Speaker, I was making the very important point that Jamaicans should not overlook, that the difference between my administration and that side is that they believe in sharing what they don't produce. It's very important that in the debate about sharing prosperity, in the debate about the social adjustments that need to happen, that you have to have the prosperity first to share. That we have to actually create the pie and grow the pie. So we are, Madam Speaker, the government and the political organization that believes in both things. That we have to produce, we have to grow the proverbial pie, and we have to share it equitably, fairly. So when we hear the discussions about increasing spending recklessly, we have been there. We're not going back there. We believe in the Joseph principle. You know, we put aside, we create buffers. So when the difficult time comes, we can save the people. We remain mindful that the global economic headwinds have not abated. And the global